Good day and a very warm welcome to this web clinic. Coordikids is committed to provide the information and strategies to help as many children as possible. A few housekeeping issues. Make sure that your speakers or headphones are connected to your computer and that your computer's volume is turned up. You do not need a microphone. Everyone except me is muted. We'll email a link to the recording of this web clinic within a few days. Use the menu on the right of your screen, which looks like this. You can check your sound in the box as indicated. Post your questions in the box marked questions. Please do not use the chat box, as I shall not be looking at the questions before the end during question time. I'll keep you busy with my slides and voice for about 1 hour, perhaps a little bit shorter, and thereafter I'll answer questions for about 10 to 20 minutes. And you can also contact me via email at marga@coordikids with any questions or concerns that you might have. I'll answer these individually and your privacy will be valued. Now, the slides are available for you to download at this time. The slides are numbered, so you can relate your notes to the slides at a later time. You can download it there. I have also included 2 Word documents, which I will talk about later, but if you want to download those, you are welcome anytime throughout the webinar. We are a large crowd this morning, so from all over the world. So in Australia, it's 9 o'clock in the morning in Brisbane time, but I hope this web clinic will give you insight in compiling an effective sensory diet to help you and the children in your life. Now, I am Marga Gray, a pediatric occupational therapist, and I have been an OT with a keen interest in sensory processing and sensory integration for about 40 years. I'm also a mother of 3 adult children and 4 gorgeous grandchildren. My latest focus is the Coordikids programs. I have developed these programs to help as many children as possible. At present, online programs are an effective way to reach many children. We rely on many years' experience and on the latest research to ensure that the information we provide, our programs, and our advice are at the best and the most relevant to help your child and all the children in your care. Okay, so we are going to discuss a sensory diet today. At first, we are going to see what it is, how it can help with self-regulation, and how it can help to prevent meltdowns. Then we are going to answer the questions of when do you use a sensory diet and where do you use it? And I'm going to help you to compile a sensory diet for your child or for the children in your classroom. If you understand the concepts of sensory modulation and the definition of a sensory diet, you should be able to compile an effective sensory diet. It might be necessary to tap in on the expertise of an occupational therapist with a sensory processing focus. The more people who can observe the child and provide strategies, the more information you'll have available to use to compile an effective sensory diet. At this time, I also want to inform you of future web clinics. Next month, we'll repeat the one on dyspraxia due to command from our audience. The previous one was presented on Thanksgiving Day in America, so very few people could listen to that one. So we repeat it for you at the same time that we're doing this one today, which is evening in America. And then towards March, we'll present one that will explain the link between sensory processing disorder and autism. And in April, May, we'll discuss anxiety from a sensory processing point of view. You can send questions and concerns about these topics, and I'll do my best to accommodate these. If you send it as soon as possible, I will be able to tap the brains of colleagues and experts as well to just give you a bigger picture and a better picture. Okay, so this web clinic is all about sensory diet. We are going to discuss the what, how, when, and where of a sensory diet. Many people find this term confusing, as this diet is called a sensory diet because it is not a food diet and has little to do with food. And some people say that they were confused because they thought a diet has to do with food. Now, I hope you have listened to the previous web clinics on sensory processing disorder and to the series of web clinics on sensory modulation. If you have not, you might find it difficult to understand some of the concepts of the sensory diet, and you are welcome to contact us to receive a link to the recordings of those web clinics. So first of all, we want to know what is a sensory diet. Think of food. You feed your child and family at regular times throughout the day to keep blood sugar levels stable. You certainly feed your child before the child faints from hunger. If a child's sensory needs are met, they can regulate their bodies, they can concentrate on tasks, and they can cope in various environments as expected of them. So in the same way that food keep your blood sugar levels at a regular and a constant level, in the same way a sensory diet keep your sensations, or actually the modulation of your sensations, at a level where you can self-regulate your body and your actions. So the child with sensory modulation issues need additional regular sensory experiences to help them, in the same way that they need to eat food at regular times. Some children might need additional movement breaks. Others might need weighted toys or a weighted blanket. Others might need a quiet time away from the hustle that is so often part of the environment and of a normal classroom. These children need these strategies to prevent meltdowns. A meltdown indicates that the child is overwhelmed and cannot regulate his or her own body towards a calm and focused state. So in the previous webinars, we have discussed the 8 senses that we as OTs talk about. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it is important because that is a sensory diet is built on the 8 senses. So we have to just quickly touch onto them. So we talk about the 8 senses are the sensations that our bodies perceive from the environment. They are registered in our receptors in our body, and it's sent to the brain via sensory pathways. And then the brain needs to process that, and it sends messages back to your body, which is reactions to those sensory input, or it can look like behavior. Now, the 8 senses include the 5 that we are all familiar with. These are your sense of vision, or seeing, tasting, smelling, hearing, and the sense of touch. The others are sense of body position, which we don't often think of because you don't have to think about in which position your body is. At the moment, you know you are sitting on a chair, if you are, or on the carpet, or you're lying on your bed, but you don't have to look at your body to know where your feet are and in which position your head is. And then the sense of movement is registered in your inner ear and also contributes to balance. And then the 8th sense, which we have added recently, like in the last few years, is a sense to provide information about your body awareness, including your breathing, heart rate, digestion, and more. So we have also talked about the sensory thresholds in previous webinars. So all these sensations that we talked about on the previous slide send messages to your brain at all times. And your brain processes that, but we have different thresholds for sensations in our bodies. So let me just see if this works. Yeah. So the high thresholds, there you go. The high thresholds have take a long time to register. So that is when you might be very sleepy and you didn't hear the dog barking outside, or you didn't hear the doorbell ringing, or you didn't hear, you know, the voice of your husband saying something. So that is a high threshold. A low threshold is when you are very sensitive. Personally, I find it when I'm tired. I'm very sensitive to noise, and I find it very difficult to cope in a noisy environment when I'm tired. When I'm not tired, I'm okay. But so the low threshold people are the very sensitive ones. They have high alertness levels, and they are easily overwhelmed, oversensitive, anxious, and defensive. And these are the kids that we see in the classroom being anxious, being scared, and avoid many activities. The high thresholds are the ones that we say has low registration. So they're often not fully aware of what is happening in the environment. They might miss instructions. They might miss things that happen in the classroom because they doze off. They just doze out. They just look as if they are daydreaming. They are often the sensory seekers, limited awareness. They might have poor attention, but they might also be movement seekers, and they do that movement seeking, so they want to move a lot because they need to, and they want to keep themselves awake. So these thresholds are really important to observe when you want to put a sensory diet together. The interesting thing and the confusing thing about these is that you can find high thresholds and low thresholds in the same child not at the same time, but on the same day. So your child might be a movement seeker. He might be very much bumping into things, seeking more movement, using a deep pressure on his pencil, rock on his chair, but then he might be very sensitive to noise, and he might be a picky eater, sensitive to smells and textures in food, and tastes as well. So this is the confusing thing, and this is why you will see later in this web clinic, the most important thing to do before you compile a sensory diet is to make excellent observations. Okay, so let's have a look at the next slide. I explain the threshold a little bit better. There. Sorry about this. Let me just take this away. Okay. Sorry, I'm finding it difficult to get to the next slide now. What is happening here? I'm sorry. I think it's this laser. So I just need to take this off. And there we go. Okay, so the next slide is again the 8 senses that I just spoke about. But let's have a look at the low sensory threshold. So if you think of the previous slide, these are the kids that have the low threshold for the different sensations. So it might be that your child might have low thresholds for specific sensations and high thresholds for other. So the low threshold child, let's call her sensitive Susan. So she has a general low sensory threshold. She might be anxious. She might be easily overwhelmed. And let's see how she reacts to the different senses. So with vision, sensitive Susan finds it difficult to cope in visually busy environments. These can be a classroom with many pictures, children and colors. It can be a swimming pool with lots of people in it. It can be a shopping center, a cinema, and also family gatherings are all challenging environments for her. Family gatherings and the busy classroom might be the visual movement of people, not only the visual pictures on the wall. And this classroom, of course, is totally chaotic, or this office, what is it? So anybody will find it difficult to cope in there, but the sensitive child will be completely out of sorts. Okay, then the next one is taste. So sensitive Susan is a picky eater. She's sensitive to food texture, food temperature, and refuses to eat green food. Then smell. Now, sensitive Susan finds it impossible to visit public toilets and also some restaurants, and she dislikes some people because of their perceived smell. And those smells are often smells that other people don't even smell. They're not even aware of that, but that she is so sensitive. And then the other one is hearing and your sense of auditory information. A low threshold for sound make it impossible for sensible Susan to concentrate in noisy environments, especially unpredictable noise, and she can have a meltdown in those environments. Then your sense of touch. Sensitive Susan is a tactile defensive with a low threshold for touch sensations. She finds it light touch, for example, the accidental touch from a friend sitting next to her, very offensive, and she finds the feeling of a school uniform unpleasant in such a way that she refuses to wear it on some days. And then your sense of proprioception, so your body position. Sensitive Susan avoids some exercises. She holds the pencil and eating utensils with a very light grip and presents with symptoms of similar to low muscle tone. The threshold for movement creates movement seeking and movement avoidance at different times of the day. Sensitive Susan rocks on a chair, fidgets, and finds it in general difficult to sit still. However, she avoids physical education classes and dislikes swimming lessons. Now, she is a child that's easily overwhelmed. She can do very shallow breathing with only the top parts of her lungs at times. She has some issues with toileting because of a lack of awareness of when to visit the toilet. And she can be just cranky and talk about stomach pain at times. Okay, so these are typical of the low thresholds. So let's have a look at the high thresholds in children. So we're going to go through all the different senses again. So these children have problems similar to those experienced by rough Ronald. So Ronald is in general quiet and can often daydream. However, he are prone to be rough when playing with his little sister and can hurt friends without the intention of doing so. So let's look at vision. Ronald has a high threshold and does not always register all the visual distractions in his surroundings. He can cope in a visually busy environment, but an organized classroom or an organized environment. So regarding taste, rough Ronald eats many different foods. He often overly fills his mouth with food and tend to eat and chew on non-food items. So he might be that chewer of the hatband or the chewer of the collar or the t-shirt sometimes. Regarding smell, rough Ronald seldom mentions different smells and enjoys different fragrances in the bathroom. So he more or less enjoys smells. He doesn't, or he's not aware of them, but he doesn't find it offensive. So he often uses a very loud voice when talking. He often interrupts others, and he handles objects and toys in a noisy way. However, he finds it difficult to cope in a noisy area and might become distressful if other people make a lot of noise. So touch, rough Ronald often leans into furniture or into friends and parents to the point of irritating them. This can be really annoying and friends don't like it. He often hugs his little sister and younger friends very tight to the point where they cry. Proprioception or the body positions. He uses too much pressure on his pencil and on the paper when writing. He might break toys accidentally because he is rough. His parents often uses the phrase, gentle Ronald, be gentle with your sister, be gentle with the toy. Now, interoception, Ronald lacks awareness of the personal space of others, of his own toileting needs. He doesn't take deep breaths, but rather breathe only with the top part of his lungs. Regarding movement, Ronald is a movement seeker. He needs to rock on his chair, to run and to jump. If he doesn't move, he might be very quiet and totally daydream and, as some parents call it, phasing out. So he also bumps into furniture and friends, and he often has bruises without knowing where he got it from. And some children with high thresholds for movement can be movement avoiders, and they can prefer to be daydreaming and to be quiet than to be involved in movement activities. Okay, so we have looked at all the 8 senses. We have looked at what high and low sensory thresholds are. So the sensory modulation issues indicates high and low thresholds in the same child. Also, high and thresholds in the same sense. So as I mentioned with Ronald, he can make a lot of loud noise and he can use a very loud voice, but he is sensitive to noise when other people make the noise, when he doesn't have control over the noise. And also with modulation issues, these thresholds can change from day to day, which makes it really confusing and which make it easy for many people to, and many therapists and many teachers to say this is behavior, it's not a reaction to the environment because it's not consistent and it's not the same from day to day. We just need to keep in mind at this point of time that it's confusing for us to observe this child, but we need to think of how it must feel to be in that little body and how confusing that must be, and that in itself can increase anxiety levels. So what do we do about this? First of all, we cannot judge because we're not in that little child's body or the big child or the adult. We cannot say, you should like broccoli, or we cannot say, this is lovely, it's yogurt with muesli in it, you should eat it, it's cold, you like cold stuff. The fact that there's muesli in it shouldn't put you off. We don't know how it feels. We once asked a little girl who said she doesn't like rice. We just said, why not? And she said, because it stings. Now, I've never eaten rice that stings because to me, rice is quite a soft texture. But she perceived it as it's stinging her. So her sense of that texture in her mouth is so much better than mine that she can actually identify the different little rice grains, cooked rice grains, and she can perceive that it stings her, whereas I just feel a lump of rice in my mouth. So we cannot judge because we don't know. What we can do is we can observe and observe and observe and observe. And that is the best way to get information to compile an effective sensory diet. A sensory diet for one child is not the same than the sensory diet for another child. It should be different, otherwise it won't work very well. Then the other important thing of what we can do is we need to record the observation. So we need to observe, 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 and we need to be objective when we observe. We need to get away from phrases like, you know, we have presented peas so many times, you have had it in your mouth, you have spit it out, you should be able to swallow it. Get away from that because we need to observe, why doesn't the child swallow that? And is it the texture in the peas, or is it because he has a problem with swallowing? Is it a muscle problem? So observations are so important. Then we have the observation should be regarding sensations, regarding what is happening around the child, what is happening in the environment, and then also the child's reactions to the sensations in the environment. And this is the most important part of a sensory diet, is to to get this on a record form. Okay, so let's have a look at the next slide. And this is actually an observations recording form for a girl called Linda. So on this form, we have two different ones, and these are the ones that I initially said you can download together with the slides. It's two Word documents. I left them at Word documents so that you can easily change it if you want to, and you can add on, and you can use it as it is to put information in. You don't have to print it and scan it and whatever. So enjoy that. It wasn't a lot of work, but it's something that you don't have to do. Okay, so the first recording form is I'm recording from the sensation point of view, and for my personal experience, I'm well familiar with sensory processing, and I'm familiar with the different sensations, and I'm familiar with the observation of a child regarding different sensations. So this one works for me. If you are a teacher or a parent with limited experience in sensory processing, the next one might be better for you. But let's do this one first. So we look at the different sensations. So I only discuss 7 here because the 8th one, the interoception, is it's complicated, and I don't want to confuse you with putting that in as well. So then on the next column, we look at the environment. So we look at the visual sensation when Linda was in the classroom. What was her reaction? She was distracted by visual images on the wall and by other people in the classroom. So that is a good observation. So it's easy, limit the distractions in the classroom, then we can attend to her sensitive visual sense. The next one is taste. So she had a cold breakfast the morning. She had yogurt and muesli, and she refused to eat it. And her parents didn't actually know what to do about it, so she just recorded that. And so you can go through all the different senses and see how does she react with which sense and where. So you can do it. The visual sense you can do in many different environments. The taste you can do in many different environments or different foods. So this environment one can be expanded a lot. And then the reaction in each environment will be different. And if you record all of that, and it should be recorded at least over 2 weeks to get a proper indication of what her sensitivities are. So for instance, smell, the movies, she finds it disgusting and she refused to go, and she says it's because it smells horrible. And I agree, some movies really smell bad. But I can put that to the side and focus on the movie. It's so big for Linda that she cannot focus on the movie. She has to go out of that room. And it's easy for us to say, oh, you'll get used to it, you know. But I once read about this person, ASD person, who said that for us to ask him to eat, for instance, food that he doesn't like, for example, peas, is to, and say, oh, just eat it, you'll get used to it, you'll get used to the taste and the smell, don't worry about it, just eat it. That is the same than giving me a can of live worms and say, oh, just eat it, you'll get used to it, just eat a few tins and you'll get used to it. I will not be able to eat it. Whatever you do, how much money you pay me, what reward you give me, I will not be able to do it. So just remember, we're not in that child's body. That child might have the same strong feeling about peas than we have about a can of live worms. So yeah, just keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, then touch, like in the classroom, she leans into friends and furniture, so we can know that she has a problem with touch sensations. At the dinner table, she's movement seeking. She finds it difficult to finish her dinner. She rocks on a chair. She walks around. So then we know, okay, she needs some movement breaks because she needs to move at the dinner table. So with this with these observations on this form, you can go to every environment and put in a strategy to help her to cope in that environment, which is great. And you can talk to your occupational therapist, you can contact me, and we can go through every environment where she has meltdowns, where she finds it difficult, and we can actually compile a strategy form for Linda to use in every different environment that she finds tricky. The other, so that is the one form, and you can use both forms, of course, and it will just help you to compile a better sensory diet. So the next form is a recording form for Jim. So we have decided here to look at his behavior or his reactions to things in the environment, and then go from there and analyze it in this way. So this form is also included as one of the Word documents which you can download. So you have his reaction or his behavior. He had a meltdown. Where? At home. What happened before? That is very important. Not only what happened, nothing happened. He came home from school. Nothing happened. He just had a meltdown. But what happened before? He came back from school. That is what happened. He was overstimulated in school. He had to hold himself together at school for so many hours. When he got home in his safe environment, he just let go and he had a meltdown. So what happened before is just as important as what happened directly on that spot. The next thing is then to identify the different sensations. So what happened before he came back from school? What happened at school? He's tired after school. The noise levels were high at school. They had a swimming carnival. They had assembly. He had to sit next to many kids to watch other kids swimming. And he had to sit still for a long period of time. So all of that on the previous slide, we identified here. If this was for Jim, we would have identified that he's a movement seeker over there. He needs to rock on his chair if this was for Jim. And now we know after school, when he had to sit still for a long time, that might be one of the triggers for a meltdown. We know he's sensitive to noise. That might be another trigger for a meltdown. Tired. Anybody who is tired is prone to have a time to rest, or it's more prone to have an anger outburst or a meltdown. And then we have strategies to calm him in that environment. These strategies won't solve the problem, but we need to use them to calm him at that time in that environment. But we can also use, if these strategies work, we can use them in a sensory diet at regular times, like a food diet, to prevent meltdowns. The other one that we noted was he refused to play in the park. So he refused to play. He was very unsocial, he was angry, he was frustrated. Where did this happen? It happened in the park. What happened before? His dad was with him in the park, and when he actually talked to another person, she said, but she saw him on the monkey bars, and he found it really tricky, and he couldn't move forward to the next bar. And a friend made a comment that he looks so funny because he's going to fall. He actually looks like a monkey on the monkey bar. And after that, he just were angry, and he left the group of kids, and he was sitting in the sandpit. So what sensations were involved here? Movement, because he was moving. Proprioception, his body position. Coordination, he couldn't coordinate his body. But then the friend made the remark, and that was the last trigger. So it was a social thing as well. So what do we do next time to prevent this behavior? So we use these observations to prevent this behavior, the refuse to play, next time. We give him physical support. We just hang on to, hold him so that he can feel how it feels to have success. we provide slow rocking. We might put him on a swing when he's distressed already. We might put him on a swing and just swing him slowly. Encourage him to breathe deeply, and then have a plan of action. Dad might, so what can happen here, how you can use this information. Dad sees him in the play pit. He talks to the other mum. He finds out what happened before. He identifies what to do next. So he takes the child and say, oh, let's breathe deeply a few times. I know you're angry. I know you're frustrated. Don't worry about the others. I'm here with you. Let's take a few deep breaths. And you know what? I'm going to swing you. And then you swing him, but you do it slowly, rhythmically, to calm him down. Then you put a plan of action together with him and you say, you know what? The monkey bars, I want to see if the dad says this, I want to see if I'm strong enough to hold you while you hang on to those monkey bars and to hold you until you get to the last one. Let's see if I'm strong enough. And you go from that point of view. So you and the child are part of a team, and you are going to solve this problem of the monkey bars. So the problem is Dad might not be strong enough to hold him. So the focus on Dad, the focus is not on the child's ability. Okay, so this is the way to use this form. But then you take all the different sensations over a 2-week period. So that will be long forms, and that's why I left it in Word documents so that you can expand and expand and expand. The more observations you make, the more information you'll have to compile the next the program. Then you identify the 3 most important sensations. The sensations that leave your child very tired, the sensations that has a big impact on the child. So we need to provide the sensation that your child needs. For instance, if he needs movement sensations, we need to provide regular movement options then, or regular quiet times out of noise if he's very sensitive to noise, to prevent the child from having a meltdown. So the same way that you provide food before your child faints, you need to provide the sensory needs for your child before he has a meltdown. Don't wait for the meltdown. That's not the thing to do. So we need to provide this sensory diet to prevent the unacceptable reactions or perceived behavior, to prevent the unsocial behavior. And I say perceived behavior as the child's reactions are not planned. It is not true behavior. It is a true reaction to what is happening in the environment and what his body is telling him. So why do we put the sensory diet together? To create a calm state of mind, to provide the opportunity for the child to focus on the task at hand, and to help the child to self-regulate. If the child can get to self-regulation, we know that it's so easy then for all the people around the child. And then the child will have acceptable behavior or reactions to the environment. And that is what we want to achieve with a sensory diet. So what are the most essential parts of a diet? Of a sensory diet. I'll call it sensory diet every time so that people don't get confused with a food diet. So the first one to keep in mind is that the diet should be individual. Each child is different. There might be a lot of similarities. For instance, movement and movement breaks are effective for all children and all adults. We all need movement breaks. So that helps us to concentrate. So that will help for all children. So I'll say it's individual, and you will look at the diet and you'll say, yeah, but I can use it for any child. And you can, to a big extent, you can use it for every child, but there are little tweaks that you have to do for your specific child. Then the next one is what I have said a lot of times already. You have to observe the child in different environments. You have to observe the child over at least a 2-year week period, and accurate observations of what happened before, which sensations are involved, makes it easier to put this sensory diet together. Then the recordings are really important, to record every observation and to ask the teacher, the parents, and the therapist to record these observations. And it should be done over a 2-week period. So that will make it much easier for everybody. And then you trial it. While you trial it, you observe again, you record your observations again, and then you adjust this diet to what is more effective for the child. And then you implement it. And then when it's implemented, you start the whole process again with accurate observations. So you don't have to observe every action of the child at this time, but you need to record anything specific. So then you might use the slide or the recording form from behavior. So, oops, he had a meltdown today, so let's just record what happened. But then there are 6 days where his reactions were just average and acceptable, so then you don't have to record anything. But if there is something that happens, then you record it, and you have to perhaps tweak and change your sensory diet a little bit to make it more effective. So when do we do the sensory diet? First of all, each child is individual and it might be different for every child. In general, 3 to 7 times per day, depending on the child and depending on the circumstances, the age of the child, where the child is it a holiday, is he at school, is he a preschooler? It depends on many things. And then it should be about 3 to 10 minutes at a time. So you don't want to spend too long on this, because then the child will refuse to do it. You have to do it regularly. You have to do it because if you do it regularly, it's predictable, and the child knows what to expect and when to expect it, and that makes it easier for them. Usually, parents come in and say, oh, no, yesterday was such a busy day, we didn't have time to do anything. On those days are the days that you really have to do it, because those are the days that your child will find difficult to cope. You will have difficulty to self-regulate, and those are the days when your child will have meltdowns. So on busy and hectic days, those are the days when it's more necessary than any other day. And also before, during, and after stressful events. So I've had many people who came in and said, oh, they had prize giving at school, or they had a concert at school, or they had one or other big event somewhere. Oh, and the child, they just had to leave early. And I said, well, did you do the activities of the sensory diet directly before you went? Oh, no, there were no time to do that. So that's the time that you really need to do it, because that's the time that your child will really need it. It's like before you go to do a lot of exercise, what do you do before the time? You warm up. You eat what you have to eat for that specific exercise. Sometimes you have to eat a banana, sometimes you have to drink an energy drink, but you think about your food before you drink enough water. You think about your food. In the same way, you need to think about your child's day before you start with it, and you need to think about what your child will need during that day. And on busy, stressful, hectic days, before and during and after stressful event, your child needs the sensory diet more than on any other day. The calm days at home are the days that you might skip one, or do it less during the day, or do it for a shorter period of time. But on the hectic, stressful days, I know it's so difficult, but just think of your child. Your child is anxious because he has to participate in a school concert. Now, before you leave, it's hectic in the house. Everybody needs to get ready. You call your child's name 100 times because he didn't put on his the correct clothes, he didn't brush his teeth. Come on, come on, come on, we need to get into the car. You go into the car, everybody is stressed. You get to the event, everybody is stressed, everybody is... That is the time that your child will have a meltdown. So that is the time that you have to start preparing for this event 15 minutes before you actually want to start. Actually half an hour. Then you have more than enough time to see that your child brushes his teeth. More than enough time to do the sensory diet, to do those activities, to get in the car in a calm way. So often people say that sensory diet doesn't work, but when you go into it, they don't use it on the days that they should use it. So it's not the sensory diet, it is how it is implemented. So it's the when is really, really important, and you have to do it regularly. It has to be predictable. So where do you do it? Again, it's individual, so each child might have a different place where you want to do it. At home, definitely, there's no excuse not to do it at home. At school, daycare, kindergarten, many of these activities can be incorporated in whole class activities, so the teacher might just do it with the whole class and not only with one individual child, which is challenging. And also you can change the activities to fit in with the rest of the class. You can still have it specifically for your child, but it can also be activities that can be easily implemented in other places. When you go to the movies, to parks, to friends, anywhere, you still have to do it. Even if you go to wherever, you will still feed your child. If your child has to take medication, you will still give it to your child wherever you are. The same with a sensory diet. It is just as important as food, as medication. And then also, when appropriate, family, friends, and the class can join in, and you can make it a fun whole group activity instead of taking your child from the activity that he is enjoying at the time and say, oh, we have to do these exercises. The OT said we have to do this. And the child is angry because he wanted to continue play. He's embarrassed because all the friends are, why are you doing that? Rather, put them all together in a group and say, let's do a little bit of fun quickly, and then you can continue with whatever you did, ball playing or painting or whatever. Okay, so how do we do it? First of all, once again, you have to make good observations. There are 7 strategies. The first one is the observations, and that one is very, very important. The next one is to record the observations, otherwise you'll forget. The third one is to identify the 3 major sensations that you observe over this 2-week period. Is it a movement? Is your child prone to movement seeking? Is your child prone to move too little and be too quiet at times? Is it all about vision, taste, and smell? What are the major sensations that triggers unacceptable reactions? Then you identify 2 activities for each, activities that your child will enjoy, activities that you will find, you and the teacher and the other people in your child's life will find it easy to implement. It doesn't help to do an activity that you know you will dislike and you know it will be very difficult to implement in the classroom. You need to find activities that is easy, otherwise you won't do it. So then you have 2 major sensations, 2 activities for each, so you have 6 activities for your program. Don't use more. 6 activities are a lot. You start with that and go slowly. You can expand, you can reduce, see how it goes. So you have to do a trial. And then when you did the trial and you implement it, then you can make visuals to make it easier for your child. Visuals are just pictures of the things that he has to do. So you make pictures of the 6 activities in your program. Then you share these with the school, with the home, with the family. If your child regularly go to grandparents or to friends, share it with them and ask them to implement that. If you leave your child, like for instance, at grandparents for the day, make sure that before you leave, you have put the alarm on for the times during the day that your child needs to do these activities so that they can remember to do it. Grandparents, they're not always very good with clocks and with time. So we get involved in the fun with the children and we tend to forget about time. So just help the family and friends by making sure that you have those alarm on their phones and that they will remember to do it. And then follow this accurately as you would if it was medication. So if your child is ill, he has pneumonia, and the doctor says he has to take this medication every 2 hours, otherwise he might die. You will give it to him every 2 hours, no matter what, whether he likes it or not, whether it's appropriate in that environment or not, you will give it to him. You will make a plan. The same way you need to make a plan to implement the sensory diet. It is that important to prevent meltdowns. Otherwise, you will end up saying, the sensory diet doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's not implemented correctly. Okay, now let's look at the sensory diet for Jim. So this is the observations recording form, which you have seen before. So let's have a look. The three so you might identify over this period of time, sorry, I just jumped back, you might identify many more sensations as these that I've put down here, and of course many more reactions and many more environments where it happened. Over a 2-week period, you can just think of how long this list will be. But you need to choose the 3 that pop up regularly. So the observations on this page of Jim, and this one can be over a 1-day period or over a half-a-day period. The sensations pointed to modulation issues and issues with noise, with movement, and with proprioception or body position. So let's choose then 2 activities for each. So I have chosen for noise. I said he's sensitive to noise, so let's find a quiet area for him, and we'll try to play soft music during that time if it is possible and appropriate in that environment. Then for movement, I have chosen to march on the spot and do the exercise of use your hands to touch your head and then touch your toes just to get some head movement to trigger the movement sensations. And then for proprioception or the position of your body, we use heavy muscle work activities. So I have chosen to do wall push-ups and stretches with an exercise band. So you should consider the sensations and also the environments that will have the biggest impact on his functioning and on his social life. So if he is, for instance, sensitive to let's say taste, but it doesn't impact on his social life, it doesn't really impact on his functioning, because although he is a picky eater, the dietitian said that he is consuming a healthy diet, he is getting all his nutrients. So don't worry about the picky eating then. Worry about the fact that he cannot concentrate in the classroom and that he has antisocial behavior in the park because he can't join in with the kids and with his peers. So choose the ones that has the biggest effect on his functioning and also on his social life, and also on your family life and classroom harmony. So if he hurts his little sister, if it's a constant battle in the house to get him to sit down at the dinner table, if it's a constant battle to get him to participate in ball games with his dad, then you know it's really impacting on your family life, and then identify the sensations that create that, which is movement and proprioception, and address them first, because you want to get harmony in the classroom, you want to get harmony in your family life first, before you get into things like he has to consume more food because he's already having a nutritious diet. Okay, so how do we implement the sensory diet, or how do we compile it? So this is another form that you can use. And somehow I don't think I have put this in as a document for you to copy. It's really easy. Just just use a Word document and insert a table with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. So these 6 rows will differ from child to child. For Jim, we have decided to do activities just when he wakes up at 7:30, just after waking up. Then at 10 again, like mid-morning, morning tea. Then again at 1 o'clock when he's still at school. Then at 3:30, that's more or less the time when he gets back home. And then at 6 p.m. to try and have a quiet evening, and then at bedtime again. So if you have dinner at 6, make it 5:30. So you have to change this a little bit according to what your schedule is and your family schedule is. And then you put those activities that I have identified in here. So at 7:30, low noise levels in the house because he's sensitive to noise. You can do wake up stretches. Instead of soft music, you can do 5 deep breaths. Then you can do touch your toes. Then you can do a power march to the bathroom and then trial soft music. At 10:01, at school, they can do the same. The deep breathing, the escape to a quiet area, I'll keep there, but you can also do the Coordikids class exercises, which is quite easy. The whole class can participate in that, and the whole class will be able to concentrate in a better way after those exercises. It only takes 5 to 10 minutes. It's all video recorded. The children, you just put the video on, the children, it's online, and the children just follows the video, complete the exercises, and they are ready to start their work again. It's very effective. We get very good feedback from teachers who are using this. And then the Coordikids program is for the preschoolers up to 4, 5 years. So I would start at 3, 3.5, up to 5, 6 even. You can use this program, and it addresses the sensory motor skills. It takes also about 10 minutes per day. So at home, at 6 o'clock at night, you can do these exercises. You can actually also use the Coordikids class exercises, and you can actually use the whole family to do it because it's really effective for everybody. I actually did it just before this webinar because I was a bit nervous because I thought I will go over my time, and I see I did. So I'm be quick with the rest. So, okay, then you have your program there. Then you make your visuals. So at 10 a.m., he needs to go to a quiet room. If you don't use the Coordikids or Coordikids class program for the whole class, then you need to give him a quiet area. He can use noise-reducing headphones. He can go into the teacher's office. He can just go to a quiet area. You can use the Coordikids class there in the quiet area. You can put a computer there for him, put it on. He can follow the exercises, or you can do it with your whole class. Then you make the visuals. If you don't want to do the Coordikids class, you put the visuals up. He goes into that quiet area. You put the visuals up. You have to do 5 deep breaths. You have to touch your toes 10 times. You have to march on the spot 30 times. You have to do 10 stretches with the exercise band. You have to do 10 wall push-ups, and then come back to your class, which is great. After that, the child should be able to concentrate in a much better way. So what impact on the success of a sensory diet? There are a few things that I can mention. First of all, screens. If your child is on the screen during the day, it will impact. It impacts in such a way that the other day a child came in and his behavior was he was just not concentrating. He was wiggling. He was just out of sorts. And I asked the mum, of course, the question, what happened just before you came? Oh, he had about 2 hours playing with TV games. That creates impossible behavior. So please limit the screen time. All the research indicates that it's not something that we should expose kids to. The next one, if they are tired, it can impact. So if they are really tired, do the relaxation exercises, do the exercises really slow, do less of each. Like if he has to touch his toes 10 times, say, okay, you can only do 5 today, and because you are tired. Then often if the child doesn't understand why he has to do this, so take time to explain. Past experiences of failures of interaction with parents that's not good, that's not pleasant, might just make the child, I'm not going to do this. I hate this. I'm not going to do this. Mum will yell at me again. I will fail again. I'm not going to do this. So that might impact on his success. The other one is, as I said, past failures and just, I don't think I can do it, so I won't. The other one might impact on success is when the child feels embarrassed. So if the child is playing in a group and you take him out of the group, telling everybody very loud that, oh, he is so naughty, he has to do his exercises now. So, Jim, stand in the corner and touch your toes 10 times. That will embarrass the child. Please, I don't think anybody will do it, but please don't do that. Don't embarrass the child. Be sensitive to the child's feelings. The other one is that, of course, you will see clown behavior. We often see that, and they make fun of you, they make fun of the activity, they say it's silly, especially the older kids. In that instance, I think it might be, you need to get strategies to handle that. Then the child that just puts up, I feel bad, I have a cold, I don't feel well, I don't want to do it, and then they might just run away. So you have to be prepared to handle this. So how do we encourage success? Limit screen time. Explain, give good reasons that the child will understand why he has to do it. Use examples. Use visuals when necessary. Tell him what to do and when to do it. Explain to him that he will feel better. Even if he's tired, he will feel better after he did this. He will feel energized. Avoid power battles. Be in the same team as the child. Support, encourage, and seek opportunities to provide the positive comments. Prevent failures by providing clear and simple instructions, supported by visuals. If the child experiences success, he will enjoy. And then be sensitive to the child's needs and avoid embarrassment. Okay. So this is an example of a sensory diet. Personally, this is a week planner on the one side and all the activities that you can choose for the red for a week, and you can use it there and choose which one you want to do. So personally, I find this quite confusing. There's a lot of activities, there's a lot of things to do, and I think if it was printed on an A3 page, it might look much better, but I find it easier to start with maximum 6 activities, because that is, and then repeat them for at least a period of time of 2 weeks, so that once you implement it and you finish the observations, at least 2 weeks do this exactly the same activity, so that the child can feel confident in it, the child can, is not embarrassed, he gets used to it, he can feel the effect that it has on his body. And they do feel the effect. I've had children asking for this because I need movement now. I need to do it now. But that only happens after it was implemented at very specific times over at least a 2-week period. Then the other thing that you can do, which I like as well, it's not for the sensory diet as such, but to help a child concentrate in the classroom or at home, is to make little pictures like this of the activities on the diet. So for instance, do work standing up. So the teacher make a few of these, not as many as this, just make a few which you keep on your desk and cut them out so you have them separately. Then when you see a child doesn't attend very well, you just put a picture on his desk. And if you implement it in a good way, the child will know, okay, I can go to the back of the classroom and I can touch my head, my toes 10 times, and I can come back to my desk again. Then he has moved. It's in a controlled way. You didn't call out his name that he should sit still. You didn't punish him. You just gave him the sensory need that he had at that time to move more than the other kids needed it. I find that a very good way to do it. Then there is some magic about the sensory diet, because what you do here is you teach the child strategies that he can use for the rest of his life. So the child needs these strategies. All of us need movement breaks. Nobody can sit for 3 hours and listen to lectures and not fidget a little bit, or not lose concentration, or not get up and just go to the bathroom. So the magic of the sensory diet for me is that kids can learn this. It takes a while. It takes a while to do the observations. It takes a while to put the program together. It takes a while to have it all in place. And that is a stressful time for everybody, including the child. But once it is in place, the child learns that there are other ways to solve problems. He doesn't have to, when he's an adult, he doesn't have to drink too much. He doesn't have to eat too much. He doesn't have to be tired, frustrated. There are things that he can do. You empower your child to have a plan. Your child will still need the OT plan. Your child will still need a therapist, but he will be empowered to know that even if there's nobody, my body tells me that I need to move now, and I know how to move and what to do. You might still need the Coordikids program or other similar programs to provide the opportunity for your child to develop optimally. But in the end, your child will be so much happier. Your child will be able to do what he has to do, and your child will be well on the road to success. And that is what we want to achieve with a sensory diet. We want to achieve the magic thing of providing the child with the opportunities to be happy and to be successful, and to be on the way to be a successful adult person. Okay, so let's have a look at our mission at Coordikids. So we have a mission to really serve children and their families, and it is really close to my heart, and it is really what I've been doing all my life and what I want to do for many more years. And I want them to help to overcome obstacles, and I want them to help them to develop their potential. And by doing that, we want to help children to be optimally developed and happy. So we offer our programs at very affordable prices, and we give a lot of support to all our members to enjoy our service and to enjoy our support. So I had 2 questions that came in beforehand. So let me just answer them, and then I'll tend to your questions. I see there are a few which I find really difficult to read on this one, but anyway, okay. Oh, sorry, somebody said she can't hear. Is there audio? So I hope you got it right later on. Is it Carlin? Okay, and then I'll answer your question. Let me just ask Linda's question first. Linda said, our OT designed a complicated sensory diet for our child. We all find it overwhelming and difficult to implement. It has become a power battle, a stressful family time, and we want to quit. Okay, I have a lot of respect for OTs who do very, very extensive and beautiful sensory diet. I have done that in the past as well for a few clients, and my experience was that they all had to quit in the end because it was just too difficult to implement, and because other people don't have the understanding of sensory processing that we have, and we don't expect you to have. You didn't do our studies, you don't work where we work, so you don't. You do your job, but I find that the strategy that I have put in this webinar today much easier, and that is to identify only 3 sensations, only 2 activities, even 1 activity per sensation, and make sure that it doesn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes. And make sure that it's targeted for that specific child. It's very difficult for a teacher to decide what to give a child if there are 20 things to choose from. It's just so much easier for everybody, including the child, if there are limited number of activities. So just what I'll do if I were you, Linda, is just to start again. Take a break, get your breath, start with the observations, compile a new sensory diet. Use your OT to help you, but you can just tell her that it's just too complicated and you need to reduce it. to a much simpler way to implement. And then Calvin is a teacher, and he says, it is impossible to include sensory diet for an individual child in my class. Please help. If you are a teacher in a classroom and you don't have a teacher aide to help you, I can understand that it is impossible to use for an individual child, especially if it is quite a complicated one. As I said, we are OTs, we are focused on the sensory things. You are a teacher, you need to teach. So we can't expect you to be a therapist. And so, Calvin, I would look at that sensory diet again, simplify it, and try to do it with your whole class. You can talk, if there's an OT involved, please talk to her and see how you can simplify it and get it to easy exercises that you can involve the whole class in, because that will be much easier. The other option is the little cards that I mentioned that you can just give to a child and say, go to the back of the class and do that. Initially, you'll have to go with the child and show me exactly what you expect. The child needs to have that very, very clear instructions, and often these children cannot follow verbal commands, so you have to go with the child, make sure that he understands, do it with him a few times, and then you can put the card on the desk and he will know exactly what to do. So that's another option. The other option for Linda and Calvin is, of course, to contact me on Coordi Consult. I'm more than happy to help you if you find this easier, and we just do a telephone consult or a Skype. Okay, then let's have a look at these questions. Okay, sorry about the one that couldn't hear. How can I tell when my child is having a sensory meltdown versus being set limits or boundaries? That is, sometimes they look the same. It can be confusing for me as a parent. My child has already been assessed as having visual, auditory, and proprioception challenges. He is 5 years old and has just started first year of school. Thanks in advance. It's very difficult. Okay, then oh, that was a new question. It's very difficult to answer your question. I actually has to go through the whole web clinic again. So please just, I hope I answered all your questions. I would love to discuss that more with you. You can contact me on Coordi Consult and book a consultation session. The first one is free, and we can just step through everything that you're doing and what you want your child to do, and what the difference is between a meltdown and it's a very fine line, the difference. It's very difficult sometimes to find which one it is, especially for a parent, because a parent, it's very difficult to be objective. The main thing I would suggest is to look at what happened before. So set boundaries can create a meltdown, because that child can just be so frustrated because they might think, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to do the match the boundary that my parent has set, and then they have actually a meltdown, but it looks like frustration. So you just have to observe that very, very closely, but please contact me and we can discuss that further. Okay, then can children be assessed early as having sensory challenges but no current indicators of either ADHD or ASD, but then go on to be diagnosed with either high-functioning ASD or ADHD in later years? Yes, that happens quite often. And I prefer that, because then you can make sure that all the sensory things are in place and that you have addressed that. And then if the child still has problems with social behavior or with concentration, then you might look into ADHD or ASD. I have a problem when children are giving a label too early. Because then many people and many professionals look at the label and they decide that is what that is what the child is, and they actually expect the child to meet the expectations of the label. So that's to me, it's not very good. Then the next question is, can sensory challenges exist independently to either ASD or? Yes, I see many children with only sensory processing problems, not ASD or ADHD, but I have yet to meet the ASD child who doesn't have sensory processing problems. Then the next one is, do sensory diets need to contain both calming activities and movement activities? Yes, in general, but it depends on the child. The next question is, how do you have success with carryover within the school setting? I hope I answered your question in this web clinic. The teacher needs to be on board. You have to have a meeting. You have to discuss the observations and put in activities that the teacher actually can implement. They need to teach. They don't need to do therapy. So it's a big favor that they do for us as therapists and for the parents and for the child to implement a sensory diet. And we need to help them to make it as easy as possible for them. Then strategies that the child does respond to for the OT, but paraprofessional reports that she just won't do it for them. So they stop trying. Yes, that's a tricky one. I find that in my experience, the OTs are very much focused on sensory, and we are aware of that, and we have just, learned the observational skills through the years to observe a child's reactions before it gets to a refusal or meltdown, and we can step in and provide strategies for that. Whereas other professionals might not be tuned into that, they are tuned into other things. So as I said, same with teachers, if the speech pathologists don't get the same reactions than I do, then it's because she's focused on other things than I am focused on. So you have to talk to them about that, and share the sensory diet with them as well. And then if your child is on a sensory diet, try to implement and to do those activities just before the session with the other therapist, because they come into my room. I use a lot of movement, I use a lot of games, we have a lot of fun. Whereas when they go into speech pathology, they don't have the same level of fun. They have fun in a different way, but they have to sit still for longer periods of time. So it will be a good idea to implement some of the movement activities directly before and directly after the session with the other therapist. And then, thank you for answering my question. I'm also resistant to labeling children too early. It is nice to have support. You're welcome. Thank you very much, everybody. It took much longer than I anticipated. I hope everything is all good. So just quickly again, the next follow-up web clinic, dyspraxia in February, SPD and autism in March, and anxiety in May. You are most welcome to contact me, info@Coordikids, marga@Coordikids, or you can go to the website Coordikids, Coordi Consult, and you can book a session there. You'll see my availability in your time zone. So, and then we can go from there. If you are in the States or in Canada and you can't find a time that is suitable for you, please send me an email. Every now and then I get up in the middle of the night for a consultation, so I don't really mind that. I don't have little kids that wakes me up, so if parents wake me up, it's all good. Okay, all the best, and thank you so much for listening, and I hope I could help you. And if you have more questions, don't hesitate to contact us. All the best. Goodbye.